Hi, for this week's Top Tips Tuesday, we're analysing the impact of rising interest rates on the Queensland housing market. So tip number one is look at really how many people are going to be affected by these increased interest rate rises. So what's interesting is actually about 25% of property owned in Australia is owned outright without any mortgage. So that means straight away only 75% of home buyers or investors are affected by the rate rises. Of that 75%, there's only a small portion that are really borrowing up to the maximum that we think will be exposed. So those borrowers on those lower incomes will borrow up to that maximum 95% to get into their first homes. Of course, there'll be some effects on that and they will really struggle, but the majority of home buyers that have owned property more than 2 years have been ahead on their mortgage rates, and they've got a lot of equity in their properties, and also their loan amounts aren't as high as what the current borrowing figures are due to the price we've seen dramatically increase over the last 2 years. So what that means is there's actually only a small portion of home buyers and investors that will be affected dramatically by those interest rate rises. And of course, when we look back at the historical data, rates were much higher in previous cycles when property prices were still rising. Most importantly, tip number three is Queensland's population has grown by 2% annually. Massive, fastest growth in Australia currently into southeast Queensland. So there's people coming in, need to buy or rent somewhere, and that's putting a real pressure on property prices, which leads us into the next tip, which is really property prices are driven by supply and demand. So the supply we understand, and we look at the figures of new builds being approved, and the current figures in Queensland for new builds is well down on what it was 2 years ago. So we're building less new properties, yet we've got this massive interstate and now international migration coming into Queensland. So there's more buyers and sellers, and we'll see that, and we drive around the local areas and we see houses and units come on the market and go very quickly. Very limited houses. I know around my own areas, and I'm driving around southeast Queensland on a regular basis, and most streets you see very little properties up for sale. Generally, if they're priced right and they're good value homes, they come on the market and sell very quickly. And a lot of the properties are sold before they even hit the open market. So that's supply and demand. So if you're not sure whether to buy now or wait and see what the latest rate rise is going to do, my suggestion would be look at back in history, and as long as you can afford it and meet the repayments, it's within your comfort loan, and your brokers or your bank has approved the finance, the long-term benefits will be very strong. Thanks for watching. Hope that's helped.